Life is the soul's journey to experience this physical world. Living life to the fullest is how we get the most from that experience. Join me in my podcast and YouTube series to explore the soul's journey and our connection to spirit. Hi, I'm Kennedy Morgan, Spirit Medium, and welcome to Hello from Heaven. Hello, Vicky. Happy Monday.
Good afternoon, Kennedy. How are you? And yes, happy Monday.
Happy Monday. So, what did you end up doing during the weekend after I saw you?
You know, I just chilled. I've got this, that's why I got this raspy, horsey voice thing, really sexy. I just can't get rid of it. So I just chilled and tried to get, I feel okay, but it just wants to linger along my throat. So just chilled and had a good relaxing afternoon.
This thing is going around. It's like, I feel like everybody is sick, you know?
Yeah, and even in Canada, I've heard lots of people the same. It's just North America, everyone's getting it.
You know what, I when I first had it, maybe about 3 weeks ago, I started getting a scratchy throat. And the next day it was really sore. So I just gargled for 3 minutes a day with mouthwash. I know you're supposed to gargle with salt too, but I gargled with mouthwash and it went away in like 3 days. So it didn't linger. But what did linger was basically the congestion, especially like in my nasal cavity area,
right,
and in my throat, like the phlegm. But that was really it. I didn't really get it too bad, which is good because I hate being sick.
No, me as well. I did do the salt remedy, and last night I went and bought all my little manuka honey and a bunch of different, ginger and lemon and water, and just trying to
Yeah. So today we have a special guest. And well, first of all, I want to say thank you for joining me on my podcast. I'm so excited to have this journey with you, Vicky. You have no idea. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun and bring a lot of awareness to people, and also to that journey that other people have in whatever it is that they want to share with us, and that connection and their connection to spirit as well. So today we have a special guest, and she does work with plant medicine. And I thought that, I've always had questions regarding plant medicine. I don't know about you, but and how it works and what it's all about, because there's, a lot of people here in Puerto Vallarta do it, and possibly around the world too. But I've always heard stories from other people, and I get conflicting views and conflicting stories about their experience. And I want to bring, Chrystal on here to get her take, since she's the specialist on the plant medicine genre. So here we go. We're going to have her come on. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. And I'm excited also because I've got lots of curious questions.
Awesome. Here we go. Hey, Chrystal, how are you?
Hey, I'm wonderful, Kennedy. Nice to see you.
Good. You look amazing, by the way. But then you always do, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to introduce you to Vicky. Vicky is my co-host here on the podcast. And we wanted to have you on today just because, one, I haven't talked to you for a while. And two, I want to see what's going on with you and catch up a little bit. And then also talk about your work with plant medicine.
Okay, sounds good.
But first of all, how's your new place?
Oh, we're loving it. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I was walking by there the other day, going to a reading myself, and I was like, oh my God, I should come in and visit, but I didn't really have time. So and you probably weren't home anyway. So now right now you're doing some work out of your house then?
Yes, so a lot of the ceremonies are hosted locally. Almost all of the work is hosted here locally, apart from the retreats.
Okay, well, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do, and all the good stuff that you're creating in the world?
Yeah, my name is Chrystal, and I'm the proprietor of Healthy Healing Goddess. So basically, I work in all different modalities of plant medicine. So anything from transitioning people to a more healing diet, helping them get off some of the pharmaceuticals and turn to more natural supplements for them to support some issues that they may be having, all the way through the scale of work with entheogens. So working into deep traumas with sacred plant medicines.
Now, how did you get started in all that?
I've always been really drawn to the natural way of living and plants and utilizing food as medicine. But it really took a pivot in 2017 when I got very sick and was hospitalized for 4 days here in Vallarta.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a big turning point for me. And it was due to some toxic mold exposure, and I had an internal fungal infection that was affecting my organs. So it was a very serious thing. And when I went home and I was in this recovery mode, I was doing a little bit of yin yoga and really just kind of online and searching for things to assist within my healing. And this is when ayahuasca really started appearing to me.
Mm.
And I couldn't even tell you the first time that it came about, but it was just this thing that kept happening and it kept popping up. And I said, okay, there's something to this. And as I began to research more, it was really looking like something that could really help me to both heal physically as well as emotionally and spiritually. So that is where my journey really took off into the medicine work.
Okay. Now, is there a qualification that you have to have or courses that you have to take? Or, I mean, I don't know, because this is why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I have so many questions. I hear so many different, viewpoints and perspectives and stories, and sometimes it's conflicting and sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's, people's journey is not that great, or maybe they don't have a great of an experience with it. But, so I wanted to have you on the podcast just to kind of sort of clear all that for us and for our audience as well, because you never know. I think there's a lot of people. I know Vicky and I talked about it yesterday and this morning too as well, about how people might want to have this experience, but they just don't know, number one, who to trust and who to go to have, a plant medicine type experience. Number two, what that experience might be like for them and what to expect in that experience. And then number three, why would you want to have, ayahuasca experience or go with plant medicine in general? So, but first I want to know, like, what did you have to take courses to learn about this, or was it just something that you picked up or learned from other people? Or
yeah, learning plant medicine is a little bit different than the natural path of learning other things. There's no like set course, although there are courses on shamanic practices and things that can enhance your practice. But it's really truly about having that innate calling. A lot of people speak of a calling to work with the medicine, and that is truly what happens. Before I went and sat my first experience with ayahuasca, I was feeling this calling that there was going to be something within my future, within the path, within sharing this medicine. And after I had that first experience, it was clear as day that, yes, I need to have this within the realm of my path and my work, because it was such an incredibly pivotal and impactful moment for me, that I knew that I needed and wanted to share that with other people healing as well. So you don't actually go and you take a course, but what needs to happen is that you study under a shaman or under a healer or someone who's been practicing the medicine for a long time. And so, I know there are other people that go out. You can, a lot of these medicines are available online now, and you can just go out and buy them, and all of a sudden they're serving this medicine. And it can be dangerous. People can have bad experiences within that realm. It really needs to be something that is respected and honored and followed by a tradition. So I studied for years with a local shaman and consulted with a shaman in Peru that I had worked with prior. The shaman in Peru was a third generation healer. He has been working with the medicine since he was 8 years old. My local shaman was working with the medicine for a decade before I came in and studied under him. And they have to approve you to begin to internship, so to speak, and study medicines under them and feel that you truly have that calling to the medicine and to sharing. So it's a lot of apprenticing work, and serving for the medicine and serving under the other healers to learn the path. And you don't get to like, okay, in 1 year, in 2 years, and you don't get a set time frame. When they feel that you are ready and have absorbed the information that is necessary, and that your heart and space is in the right space to serve, that's when getting you ready to go out on your own and serve the medicine.
Okay, so that doesn't mean that you're a shaman, since you studied under other shamans then, am I correct? Or is it okay?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And you know, it's interesting because I think we discussed this at one point, something on Facebook where someone said something to the effect of how plant medicine is a sacred medicine, and it's a native, or like it's sacred in terms of being native to the country, right? And I found that post kind of funny because I was thinking to myself, well, that plant grows basically around a lot of the indigenous regions of the world. So doesn't that make that plant available to everyone in the world? Because are we all on the same planet, or are we all in the same world together? So why is it that that only indigenous people can share that experience and other people can't? Or that why does it have to be an indigenous person who can teach that or facilitate that experience and others can't? So I always thought that perspective was funny. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much in line with how you feel. You know, we are all here on this planet. We are all indigenous to this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And the plant, specifically ayahuasca, has recently emerged out into the Western world. So many years ago, the shamans and the tribes of the Amazon, when people would come to them, or tribe members would come to them for healing, the person seeking the healing did not take the medicine. The shaman drank the medicine and journeyed for them and found the traumas and things that were needed to be healed, and healed them on a spiritual level. As people began approaching the medicine in the Amazon, and as the medicine decided to make its approach out into the Western world, the dynamics have changed a little bit, and now participants come and they share within the sacrament of the medicine, as well as the facilitator or shaman. The medicine has a feminine spirit and energy to it. So it's often referred to as Mother Ayahuasca, or Grandmother Ayahuasca. It can take on a motherly or grandmotherly energy, depending on what that person needs at the time. And so she is considered a master teacher plant. And we learn directly from her. So I feel that if she did not want to be being exposed and people healing with her on a global level, she would have stayed within the Amazon and kept within that lineage that had been for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. But as speaking to these healers, and particularly like my shaman in Peru, that's multi-generational healer, you know, he feels that the world is very sick on multiple levels, and that this is needed in humanity for this time, for this medicine. It's come out at this time for a purpose in this time of history.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because it's only in the past, like maybe it's only because I've been exposed to it over the past 3 years, but it really has, excuse me, it really has been the past like 3 years that I've really seen it take hold, and I hear a lot more people talking about it. But to me, the interesting part of it is that it coincides with like COVID and all this other stuff that's happening in the world, and all the changes that people are going through, and all the different like transformations or transitions that they're both physically outside themselves in their environment, home, relationship, life, things like that, but also too internally as well. And I find that that's interesting that for me, well, it's probably been around, I know, for a while, and people have probably been talking about it for a while, but I've just noticed that more and more people are actually participating in the ceremonies and the experience itself. So that's interesting. Tell us real briefly, for those of the audience that don't really understand or know what ayahuasca is, what is it exactly, and how is it made? What do you do with it?
Yeah, so ayahuasca is, the traditional brew is made of just 2 plants, the ayahuasca vine, or Banisteriopsis caapi vine, and the leaf of the chacruna plant. So these 2 plants are combined to make what is known as the sacrament, or tea or drink, of ayahuasca. Without the 2, the effects do not happen. It's very interesting. The vine grows in one place, the leaf grows in another, and somehow through this divine network of the universe, these people learn to combine them have these plant spirits awaken and be able to come out through this.
That is just crazy, because I mean, what did those people do? Did they sit there all day and just, like, put little plant leaves together with roots and like have a whole like apothecary, laboratory or something like that, where they just figured all this stuff out? Like, how did they even figure it out?
It's amazing. So many different stories of the lineage and things like that, and but it's true. She calls, so there's this calling. So they combine the vine with the chacruna leaf. The chacruna leaf is the plant that has the dimethyltryptamine contained within it. So this is where you may or may not have visionary qualities on a with ayahuasca. It is not 100% guaranteed. Some people do, some people do not. It just depends on what you need for your personal healing in that moment.
And is there like a specific dosage that somebody takes, or how do you figure that out?
Yes. So me personally, there are some people who should not receive the medicine of ayahuasca. There are some contraindications to the medicine. Anyone that is on MAOIs or SSRIs cannot take the medicine. They need a minimum of 45 to 90-day detox, depending on the dosage and how long they've been on that medicine.
And what is that? What are those things you just said?
So those are like antidepressant medicines.
Okay.
Or any antipsychotic, antidepressant, anxiety medications.
Okay.
Those work within the same area of the brain as the ayahuasca does.
Oh, okay.
So it's very crucial that people are detoxed and have that out of their system for an extended time, because it can be very dangerous and cause what's called a serotonin uptake syndrome, to where the serotonin is not regulated anymore.
Oh, okay.
It's very important that those people detox off of those medications before coming in and taking the ayahuasca, so the ayahuasca can do her healing work. Because what's really happening is it's rewiring the neural nets in the brain.
Okay.
And assisting in healing. So I personally request that every participant fill in a medical questionnaire to first ensure that they can receive that medicine safely before partaking in a ceremony. And there's certain preparations that are needed to prepare for the medicine as well. And there's a whole process to coming in and receiving that medicine.
Sure. I was talking to Vicky this morning. I was like, there's gotta be something or some way where they know how to administer the ceremony and ayahuasca to people, because it can't just be like random.
No, and for people coming in on the first time, we do give a reduced dose to see how they are going to react with the medication first, because it is a medicine. So like anything, some people have a different reaction to other things as others. Average dose would be probably around 30, 35 to maximum 40 milliliters on a single dose serving. So it's about a shot glass is what you're looking at for the average dose of ayahuasca.
And then what happens when you go into these experiences? What does crazy stuff happen in your head? Do you see visions? Do you go out of your body? What actually happens?
It is so extremely challenging to put it into words, because each time that you work with this medicine is different from the last time. And each person that is within a ceremony is having their own internal journey. So no one is having the same experience as the person next to them. So we have a saying that she gives you what you need, not necessarily what you want. So what really connects in with your preparation, your intention that you're going in to work with her. Are you there because you have a post-traumatic stress syndrome and you're really looking to release that deep-rooted trauma? Your experience may be very deep in going through that, processing that trauma. Are you looking for, generally to be a more conscious person and have that connectivity to the collective? You may be on a higher journey. You may be cleansing physically and purging and processing so that your body can receive these energetic messages in a more clear way. So there's not a box description that I can give you as far as what your experience may or may not be. People may have visions, some people may not have visions. The only thing that I can share is that it is compared to sitting one ceremony over the course of one night is compared to about 8 years of normal physio talk therapy. So you're going to have this monumental shift in your thinking, in your knowing, in your understanding over the course of that night to the following morning. So it's definitely a life-changing experience. It just is variant upon what that is and what's important and what's needed in your life.
Wow.
That's so interesting. How many days or do you recommend, Chrystal? Like, is it a one-time process? I know it's usually like 6 to 8 hours, but what's your recommendation for someone doing it?
Wait, it's 6 to 8 hours?
Well, okay, so it's an overnight complete. So we start around 9 o'clock evening, and it finishes.
Sorry, it's overnight. Oh my God. Okay. Okay, sorry. I know. I see, I don't know that much about ayahuasca or plant medicine for that matters, but I always thought it was like maybe just a couple hours.
Yeah, it's traditionally held through the course of the entire night. So we start around 9, take the medicine around 10, 10:30. And after a couple hours, usually around 2 hours, you'll have an option to take more medicine should you feel that you need to or would like to go deeper with the experience. The medicine ceremony, you close down when the sun comes up. And so it's really dependent upon the person. You know, some people can have, back to your question, Vicki, some people can have the results that they're looking for within one experience, and they're good, and they're, they've received the messages that they need. They can move forward and integrate these messages within their life and how their daily activities and thoughts and actions may change based on that. Some people have things that they need to go deeper within. So then you have more of like a retreat setting where you have multiple ceremonies throughout the week so that you can go into deeper work. Some people like to do them, once every few months or twice a year. So it's really variant, again, upon the person, what they're facing, and how deep the trauma is, or what they're looking to heal or receive from the medicine.
I'm glad you're doing this. And do you guys have like a calling, what you recommend for them to do, work on a steady basis? Like when you're working medicine, is there other internal work that you recommend doing?
Oh, absolutely. So in preparation to receive the medicine, it's really important to cleanse the physical body and to begin to connect into the spiritual self. So a practice of like Qigong or meditation, yoga, things like that, to begin centering the self in order to partake within this experience. I also offer a medicine called Kambo, which is a deeply detoxifying medicine that is recommended to partake in prior to receiving the ayahuasca. That's just a deeper cleansing of the physical body. So that way it's not having to work to cleanse all the toxins out of the body. You can go direct into work with the intention of what it is that is needed in that moment. And then really where the true work begins, which I cannot stress enough, is post-ceremony. So post-ceremony and the integration is key to working with this medicine. It's very different from other psychedelic substances like LSD or mushrooms where you like, oh, I'm going to go have this experience, or maybe it's more of a recreational thing. Ayahuasca is very much not like that.
You know what? I'm so glad you touched, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm so glad you touched on that because, and again, Vicki, before the podcast yesterday, we were talking a little bit about, some of our own questions and just between ourselves, because I know Vicki, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vicki, that you had a little bit of a calling to do maybe ayahuasca or something like that, and you had said something.
I did. I actually met a friend, and we were talking about ayahuasca, and it was about 8
we just lost
8 months ago, and I've been on a grief journey. I lost my son 2 years ago, and I thought it was too soon, but I met with a practitioner over Zoom, and it was really interesting. I had this mystical experience, which I didn't realize that it was the vine and the leaf. So that night after I talked to her, I literally had the vine go up through my body, and this crazy long story that I'd like to share with you after. But she was saying I invoked the medicine, and I had this deep calling to do it, but I was leaving in 10 days to go to Europe with my husband. And I literally wanted to go to Oregon. And I was like, it was everything in my power holding me back not to go. And I ended up at the last minute not going. But when you say that calling, it was so profound and mystical, and like it was like I was having a journey also. So it was like I was having an inner journey experience.
Yeah.
So since then, I've been really, really fascinated. And that was my other question to you, is recommending, like, I've been doing my grief work on my journey. And these last 6 months, I've been doing them more in a humanistic way. So I think I'm kind of ready for this next level. Do you work with grief, with people going through the grief journey in the medicine, with the medicine?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an excellent tool to help in coping with grief, post-traumatic stress, anything like that. I will tell you though that, you know, you had that call and that was beautiful and that was that awareness, but it didn't happen because it wasn't the right time. She knows when that right time is, and that's when it will happen for you.
Yeah.
And you're 100% correct. And I knew that grief was still too deep within me. I'm bringing it more into my heart now. And she knew it wasn't my time. I felt that 100%. And I was so excited at the time. I literally was going to, you know, think about not going on my trip with my husband and meeting him there. That's how strong the calling was. He doesn't know this. So when he listens to this podcast,
oh, hopefully it doesn't get you in trouble with your husband.
No, it won't.
But
at the same time, that's where I was going to ask you with, you know, I think we always are doing our grief work through our journey, but there's probably a time that she'll invite us in to explore that with the medicine.
Absolutely. Yes. And like you said, you know, you knew that that was a protected thing, like you were very excited, but in retrospect, she was protecting you because you weren't set in that space to where you could come in with that lovingness and that joy. And those two words, you know, are so powerful to utilize within the ceremony, to be able to connect in with the love and the gratitude is tremendous key in working with this medicine. Because if you come in with a very anxiousness or fear, you know, of course, whatever vibration we're putting out is matched. So I always meet with all of my participants prior to ceremony and do a little bit of guidance with them, get them to know each other so that that comfortableness and that bond begins to form, and then guide them into how to work with the love and the gratitude once the medicine begins setting in, to be able to connect into that higher vibration so that they can truly tap into the magic and the love of the medicine versus a fear-based response or reaction.
That's excuse me. That is such a I think really good point to make there, because I always feel that whatever you go into, whether it be ayahuasca or going into a new job, it doesn't really matter. When you go into it fear-based or with anxiousness, and there's a difference between being excited and being anxious, right? Sometimes it's the same, it feels the same. But when you go into it with lower vibrational set points or mindsets, I think that sometimes it creates resistance, you know, in order for you to really be able to get the experience that you want to get out of the new job or the ayahuasca experience, for that matter. Let me, I don't know how to ask this question without sounding like an asshole. But I find that a lot of people, especially here in Puerto Vallarta, talk about the ayahuasca experience or the plant medicine experience, particularly mushrooms and maybe even the what do you call the frog? Bufo. Okay. And I feel as if some people use it as a crutch, plant medicine as a crutch to just escape, versus like actually doing work within themselves or work within the spirit or the emotional or mental aspect of things. Have you seen that, or has that been your experience, or, you know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I have seen that. As with anything, people can have an addiction to anything, right? True. Anything that allows them to escape, whether it be an addiction to work, addiction to a substance, you know, addiction to whatever, insert activity there. The plant medicines, I have seen that as well, where people get they don't want to come back. They're in this mystical experience. They're having this spiritual revelation, and they don't want to come back to the reality, to this world. And I would say that this is where the integration and the guidance really comes in, because if I see someone that is getting within that, it is my responsibility as a practitioner to bring that into their awareness and to ask, are you truly seeking this for healing, or are you just escaping? Because this is about healing, not about escaping something. It's about going into it so that it can heal and pass.
I love that. I love that.
It's important to be, I feel very much resonant that it's extremely important to be a teacher. If you are going to walk this path and serve these sacred medicines, that innately you take on the role and put on the hat as the teacher, because people are not educated about these things. It's new to the Western world. And, from, the 60s and 70s, it was just like a recreational thing of psychedelics. And as we begin to work with these sacred plant medicines, and especially the deeper ones like the bufo and the ayahuasca, it's critical to teach people about them and how to work with them going forward versus just giving them a medicine experience and that's it.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday with Marg, Vicky. Remember about how when I do these workshops and courses and things like that, when I'm holding space for the people in the workshop, I am responsible for their spiritual health at that point and in that moment. And I think there's it sounds simple, but really there is a true responsibility as a teacher that you have when you start to work with more of the spiritual aspects of the self and things like that. Because if you recognize somebody who's coming into something with fear and you don't address it, or you continue to move forward without addressing it, and that person then has this horrible experience and it impacts them or scars them for the rest of their life, then it becomes your fault, right? Because now because you're the one who introduced that, and you failed to guide them appropriately where they would get the best experience that they had. Which leads me to my next question is, how often do people do this, or how often do you recommend people do this, and should they do it regularly, or when they do it with the same facilitator or administrator of the medicine versus like going from one person to one person to one person to one person just because it's ayahuasca?
This is going to be very personal, so the answer will vary depending upon each person. I would say that, as we were just talking about, like jumping into the next experience, or like, oh, I want to do that again. I want to do that again. Now, some people, they had a beautiful experience and they want to go deeper within that. And you have to be able to gauge and read that participant if that's truly what they're seeking. If someone is just, I want the next thing, and jumping to this practitioner and the next medicine and peyote and ayahuasca, and you're not giving yourself time to integrate and take from that one ceremony what was needed. Because as you begin the integration process, the more clean you stay in your diet, the more you continue your practices with the meditation or the yoga, the mindfulness of just doing a walk in nature quietly without a phone and connecting in with that spirit, the longer the medicine is going to stay active and continue to give you messages. So you may still be receiving messages weeks, months, or even a year out, depending on your responsibility to the integration process afterwards. So some people may be ready in a month or a couple of months to have another experience. Some people may be a year or two and still be working with the integration from that original ceremony.
The only reason why I asked you about that is because I see, and this is just my perspective, I see like someone who is facilitating plant medicine and or facilitating spiritual work, like a spiritual coach, for example, that when they work with the same person over time, that they learn, that they see the growth within that person, and then at that point they know what they need and what to give them so that they can move forward in their development or spiritual development or emotional or mental, healing. So that's why I asked you that, because I would think, and this is just my perspective, I would think that if you were to go with somebody and do ayahuasca with them, and that the person who facilitates the plant medicine, that you would go to the same person because they would recognize your journey from the beginning to where you are today. And that was the only reason why I asked you that question.
Yeah, that can definitely be a tool that is beneficial, particularly for the participant, because as you continue to go into these deep experiences, and we have the integration circles following, the layers of the onion, so to speak, are coming off, and you know that path and you understand where they've been coming from. So
Right.
yes, it's easier to continue to guide them. Now, at the same aspect, I would definitely say that Puerto Vallarta has a transientness of it, and
Sure.
people are in and out. So again, I teach them what to look for in other facilitators, what they should be asking for, what they should be doing for preparations, for integration, so that if this person is on a passing through experience and they are called to work with medicine somewhere else, that they have the tools and their checklist to go, okay, is this going to be right for me? And truly feel if that person's energy resonates with them. If they're not meet with them or talk with them before, and it's just more of a business model, I would recommend that they find someone who is willing to resonate and share that energy and get to know them to really be able to assist them in the best way possible.
Now, I have two more questions and I'll let Vicky speak. So I'm sorry. I'm so Vicky is the
So
one who
excited.
I'm so excited. Vicky is the one who's been thinking about doing this. And and I'll be honest with you, I'm not, but Vicky is, but and you'll have to tell me your experience, Vicky. But so I love just to have more knowledge. So what exactly does someone experience when they're doing ayahuasca? I mean, what happens? What do you see? Is it, do you see strange creatures? Do you see strange aliens? I don't know what happens.
Sometimes you see nothing. Sometimes you can experience the entire universe of the cosmos. Sometimes people have an experience of the serpent is a very common one that comes in, the energy of the serpent or the jaguar. But I would say almost across the board, no matter what you're experiencing, may that be a visual or a physical or an emotional or a spiritual experience, you're gonna feel that feminine energy and that support from her, and possibly even her speaking to you in a voice. So that feminine guidance is like the main thing that you will, I can almost say across the board, most people resonate with.
I was listening to another podcast, I think it's the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Do you ever watch that show? And he talks about like it's a group of I guess scientists that are now starting to map the world of the experience of the world of ayahuasca that people have, because they're realizing, and I don't know if this is true or not, but but they're realizing that that they think that when people go into this other world within themselves, when they do ayahuasca, that they actually go into another dimension. And so what they're trying to do is they're doing these experiments with people who are volunteers, basically, to go through the ayahuasca experience, and then they come back and describe their experience and who they meet, or what they see, things like that. And interestingly enough, and from what I understand, is that they are now realizing that there are very similar or the same entities, spiritual beings, experiences that people have in this dimension or in this world, which is unusual because the psyche of an individual from one person to the next is completely different.
Yes.
So why is it that that people are experiencing the same type of entities, spiritual beings, experiences, places, things like that? And so they're starting to realize that maybe there's some evidence or some proof that when we have these ayahuasca, or when people have these ayahuasca experiences, that they are actually going into the dimension of, I don't know, the spirit world or the fifth dimension or whatever that may be, to allow them to be able to communicate with these entities and experiences that they have on the other side. Has anybody ever told you that, or have you kind of sort of connected the dots and put things together like that?
There's definitely a commonality when people do have the visions. You know, there's a lot of fractal art. There's a lot of the jaguar, the snake, the serpent. In Bufo experiences, a lot of people describe a pure whiteness, like the God molecule. They just have this all-knowing sense, or the entities, like the alien entities. That's a very common one with the Bufo as well, like either the pure white or the. So yes, there are similarities in the experiences. So you're definitely tapping into a collective energy because it's worldwide, right? These people don't know who this person is on the other side of the globe, and they're tapping into similar energies on the other side.
And they're having similar experiences, not knowing one another and having different, having different life paths and things like that. So it's just, for me, it's just so interesting. Like, what is beyond what we know of this medicine, right?
Gosh,
And and I just think it's incredible.
I always think about you when I'm like going into ceremony, because you have such a connection with the spirit world already. I said, oh, and it would be so amazing to hear about and see what your journey would be, as you already have practice walking on that other side so much.
Yeah, well, I do walk on the other side so much, and most of my life is dedicated to the spirit and the spirit world and things like that, and I always try to strengthen my connection. But that's exactly what Vicky and I were talking about yesterday. Is like, how do you know whether you need it? Because I feel like I meditate every day, and I go into this deep meditation. And we were talking. I was telling Marg and Vicky that Marg is one of our friends. Vicky, yesterday when we were out to lunch, I was saying, so my boyfriend is in Peru, and I was in a meditation one day, and I was literally sitting on my bed against the wall or against the headboard, and I went deep into meditation, and more deeper than I normally go, and I found myself on a motorcycle, and I looked around, and I could, I saw that on the side of the motorcycle where should be a rearview mirror, it was broken off. On the left-hand side, there was a rearview mirror, and it was still there. And then I looked around me, and behind me on the motorcycle where the passenger, like that passenger seat should be in behind, it was broken. And I was trying to start the motorcycle and ride it. And every time I would shift gears, I would hear this grinding. And I'd be on these roads that are like bumpy like this. And then I thought, what the hell? Where am I? And immediately when I asked that question, I got the word Peru. And I thought, oh, crap. And I realized that I was in my boyfriend's body. And so I got out of my meditation. There was other details too, but I got out of my meditation. I'm texting him like, hey, I know this sounds crazy. Just say yes or no, but are you driving a motorcycle? And I talked to him about the broken mirror, and I described the back seat and how the crunch and how the steering was off just a little bit on the motorcycle. And to me, I was like, I would never ride that motorcycle. It seems dangerous, right? And so he immediately texts back and says, yes, how did you know? Like that's,
so
yes. So I had this journey without even expecting it. So it happened twice. And then another time I saw myself, and I had a backpack, and as I was looking at my backpack and swinging it over my shoulder, I saw the rip where the strap connects to the actual backpack. And then I saw the hole in the backpack, and I saw somebody's phone hanging out of the hole, things like that. And I asked again, like, where am I? And Peru came back again. And I was like, oh, crap. So then I get out of the meditation. I'm texting my boyfriend, and I'm like, hey, you need to go buy a new backpack. And because the phone's falling out of the back, you're losing stuff. The strap's broken. How could you carry around this stuff? You need a new one. And he texts me back. He says, how did you know?
Yeah, so you're astral traveling.
Or is that what it is? Is astral? But then, let me give you this story. But then I thought, you know what? That's weird. Well, maybe what I could do is I could just put my consciousness in different things. Or maybe that's what it was. Maybe it's not astral travel. Maybe it's just allowing my consciousness to be or to share that space with that person for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm saying this because I imagine this might be happening too in the plant medicine
Yes.
arena aspect of things. So then I was meditating, and again, I went deep into meditation. And when the objects around you in your house, right? So I'm in meditation. I thought, why don't I just put my consciousness like in the bull skull that I have hanging on the wall, or like the dream weaver that I have hanging on my wall, or like the obsidian stone that's on the top of my staff, leaning against the wall. So I did.
Yeah.
It was the craziest thing ever. When I put and it wasn't, I don't know how I did it. I don't know. I can't explain to you how it even worked. But when I started to focus just my attention on being inside the obsidian shard that's on the top of one of my staff that was created for me here, I saw my body on my bed meditating. And then I would pull it back and I'd be in my body again. It's a very subtle difference, but I felt myself back in my body. And then I pushed my consciousness again to like the dream weaver that's in front of my bed. And I saw myself the way meditating from the perspective or from the point of view of the dream weaver.
Yeah.
It
reminds me of when I was a child, and I would have these out-of-body experiences, and it's exactly what you're talking about, like that subtleness of being outside and seeing yourself laying there or sitting there and coming back in. And
it was the craziest experience. And I don't know how I did it or even how the process works, but and I could feel the essence of the dream weaver. Like I could feel the fibers of the wood or the branches that create the circle around it. I could feel like the fibers of the strings that were in the dream weaver itself. And it was just like and like in the obsidian, when I looked for myself in the obsidian, it was like I could see myself, but it was like this, almost like wearing shades, like sunglasses, but I could see myself. It was the craziest thing. And so I have been doing that quite a bit. So, and just exploring in my meditation. But going back to why I brought that up was like, yes, I do meditation a lot. And I always ask myself, do I really need ayahuasca? Do I really need to have the plant medicine experience? And maybe it is for me, maybe it's not for me. I'm not saying that people shouldn't do it, should not do it. I'm just saying, for me, it wasn't something that I resonated with necessarily. But I always, when people have the experience and they come to me and they talk about it, I'm always fascinated. I'm all like, that's so cool.
And maybe it's not for you in this time. Maybe down the line, you will have a call to experience it. But I think it's so important. And I thank you for bringing this up, that if you're not truly called to work with the medicine, I discourage people from coming in who are just looking to have an experience, because that's not how this works. Going back to like other psychedelics where you can just kind of have the experience and it's more a recreational thing. Ayahuasca in particular it just doesn't work like that. It's about working with those messages after you come out of ceremony. And if you're not applying them, then she's going to keep tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, wait a minute, different now. What are you going to do about this? So it's definitely important to have that call and want to partake in this for whatever that reason is.
There you go, Vicky.
And that's exactly, I feel the calling, but I really resonated with it. It wasn't time for me yet. And I do really resonate with doing the Kambo. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
First. And that's come into play quite a few times. And more so just that I think my body needs a big detox. Breathe likes to hide in the body, and I feel it where it's hidden, especially around my hips area and the pelvic area, which you say the mother feminine stuff. So I'm really excited to talk to you about that, in person on this podcast. But I love what you said about being called to and doing the work, right? Which Kennedy and I talked about too. We think, I believe any spiritual work, we have to do the work or it's not going to work, right?
Absolutely.
As we know. But I love the part about like the meditation and journey. And that was for me too. It was like, I can go there without it. Why am I called to this, right? Can I go higher? There's a little bit of fear in there, but just a very small amount. A lot of times when you do read about it, it's like the psychosis, right? You know, I've looked into that. I think it's a small amount of fear-based with me. I'm more excited. You know,
I think it's natural to have a little bit of fear or anxiety about something that is totally unknown, that you're going to be in for hours, right? So that's normal, and that's where it really comes in of the preparation and meeting with you guys and getting you to a comfortable place so that when you do come in for that ceremony, you're ready.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I think for a lot of people, and I could be wrong, I'm talking for people at this point, so I apologize, but I know for me, for sure, that when I go into something unknown, it's not about the fear of like what I'm going to experience, what's going to happen. It's the fear of letting go, releasing the control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think for me, that's what it would be. If I were to do something like this, that's what it would be. I would have to be comfortable with, you know, releasing that control.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I teach people like, you know, our words are very powerful as well. So, you know, a lot of people surrender for a lot of people is like, that gives a little bit of an anxiety, you know, when you say surrender to something, because that's giving up all of your power or your control, right? Versus I like to teach people when they come into the medicine to allow the experience to happen, allow her to show you what needs to be. So that way you're not giving up all of your control. You can be in communion with her and speak with her, but allow her to, and to show you the messages that you need to have, or the downloads that you need to receive.
Yeah, and I do that too when I'm working with, and it's funny because I still have this control thing, but when I'm working with spirit, when you said surrender, it just really hit home with me, because that's what I relate to, and I've had to learn how to do that working with spirit, because it truly is about surrendering to that process, and you know, to them, because when I'm doing this, it's about blending energies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you allow someone to blend their energy with you, it's particularly someone that is not a physical person, right? And when you blend the energies physically, it's like your best friends. You finish each other's sentences. You know what each other are feeling, especially like between couples or best friends or like twins, things like that, right? You're blending the energy there. But when you're blending energies with, you know, entities or souls or spirit that you can't see, and you haven't grown up with them, or you haven't spent that much time with them, it is about releasing the control and surrendering to that process and their energy to be able to, you know, bring forward the messages and the details and the validations that, you know, that are brought forward in my sessions. And it's not an easy thing to surrender to, because when you're working with the unseen or the unknown, and you are, I don't know, necessarily required to, that's not the right word, but when there's a need to surrender like that, to that degree, it gets a little bit scary sometimes for some people, you know. So I understand that.
Yeah, your work and my work are very linear within that aspect, because we're working in this other world of the entities and the spirits, and allowing that to come in and holding that space to allow that message to come through, right?
Yeah. And then on my daily like, you know, life, I just normal living, I love to be in control of my environment, not other people. When I say control, I'm not in control of other people, but just like my environment and where I find myself to be. But because I also think that's part of like borders and boundaries.
For
you know,
sure.
If there's an environment that you know you're not going to feel comfortable in, why put yourself in that position?
Absolutely.
So when I talk about control my environment, that's what I'm talking about. So, but I think that's so important to be able to surrender and to learn how to do that, for not just for this particular situation, or for, you know, mediumship or plant medicine, or, you know, working psychically or doing massage therapy or yoga, whatever that may be. But surrendering to the process is important, because when there's resistance there, that's when you don't grow.
So do you think the plant medicine, Chrystal, like blends with us, like when we're blending energies, like what Kennedy was saying with our mediumship, right? I just felt that she actually is working with you.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Yes.
yeah.
The medicine physically will be within your system 72 hours after you take it, but her spirit stays with you and you will continue to receive downloads and messages as you continue to stay open to doing so. So it's absolutely a blending of that energy. Yes.
Beautiful. So it's almost like a lifestyle, the plant medicine would be, wouldn't it?
It is a lifestyle in the aspect that it will change your thinking. And it's not necessarily that you may feel called to continue working with her. You may feel called that you have enough of her resonant within you to be fine for a while and work with that.
But as
yes.
you're honoring her along the journey, she'll be working with you. That's what I mean, more of a lifestyle. Like she's in you. So as you're honoring and going deeper into your meditations and more sacredness for yourself, she seems to be in there aligning with you.
Yes. You will feel the heart opening, the expansion, the morning after when we share our experiences together, and each person shares their little tidbit of their journey and what they went through. And there's just this communal feeling, and it's a connection, that collective consciousness collecting within us, and allowing the compassion and understanding to radiate out. And it's something.
And I do believe in a collective consciousness. I firmly believe in that. And I think that, I will always say, explore what feels right to you and what's in a safe way, in a safe environment, and do with somebody that, knows what they're doing, whether it be plant medicine or anything else, for that matter. And in that exploration of it, hopefully that it do everything you can to really make it a good experience for yourself, so that you can grow from that. And that's why I do this podcast, because I want to create awareness and allow people to expand and grow. Now, Vicky had a question before, and I wanted to add on to that question. When I start to teach things like mediumship and mediumship development and connecting with spirit, I always tell people and warn people, once you open up that door, there is no going back, because there is no going back.
Yes, it's 100% the same with the ayahuasca. She's going to open this door and you can't close that. You can't unlearn that. It is now open. You're open to that other realm. And so now that's where the torch of responsibility is passed on to the participant. And what are you going to do with that going forward? And work with protecting your energy or protecting your space or controlling the environment that you're in, right? So that you have that protection and cultivation of a higher vibrational energy for yourself. Because if you allow yourself to drop, of course, as you know, then lower vibrational spirits can come in as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. When we allow our vibrational set points or point of attractions to drop down, below the point of what I call neutrality, then we're now in the lower vibrational emotional set points. And when we are in that position, we attract that energy, basically. Yeah. So, and then we start to feel as if we're trapped in that space. It becomes this cycle 22, so it's always important to be able to do that. Now, do you have anything coming up here? Do you have a ceremony coming up, or do you have any projects that you're doing right now?
Yes, I have. Well, we just finished a cacao ceremony night before last.
What's a cacao ceremony?
So cacao is another sacred medicine. It is not a psychedelic journey. So cacao is a heart activator. So it is full of magnesium and iron and antioxidants. So it's actually very beneficial to drink the cacao for your physical body. But it also creates that effect of releasing the endorphins within the body and the brain. So it is an energizing medicine. It is an activating medicine. It has been used for hundreds of years around the world for heart opening ceremonies.
Oh, that's what I need.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So I'm doing those pretty much monthly for under the full moon. So we do a full moon cacao dance. And a friend of mine, Dill Divine, he comes in and does a tarot reading.
Oh, Dill, I love Dill. Dill will be our next guest on the podcast. He's fascinating too. So.
Amazing. We've joined forces for the full moon cacao dance. So he comes in and does his intuitive tarot and offers a guided meditation. And then I offer the ceremonial cacao. And then we go out and dance on the grass underneath the full moonlight and allow that energy and that cacao to activate within the body. And it's just so connective, and you just radiating and feeling that collective consciousness and that love and compassion to each other for at the end of the ceremony. So there's another one of those coming up on January 7th at 8 p.m. And then I have a small group ayahuasca ceremony on January 21st. There are 2 spaces available in that one left. And then the big one is the Sacred Medicine Women's Retreat. And that is the end of March, beginning of April. It's going to be a week long at Equilibrium Healing Resort here in Puerto Vallarta. And we will partake in 6 different sacred ceremonies. So there will be 2 temazcals offered, a Kambo cleanse, 2 ayahuasca ceremonies, and we will close it out with the cacao ceremony too.
And how do they reach out to you, or how do they sign up for these or register for these ceremonies or experiences?
So you can go to my website at healthyhealinggoddess.com or on Facebook or Instagram at healthyhealinggoddess.com.
Yes. And can they call you, or can people call you, or would you rather them just go to your website, or can they text you?
Yeah, text. Okay. WhatsApp is a great way to contact me as well. And all the information is on there.
And you're also on Facebook?
Yes, Facebook and Instagram at Healthy Healing Goddess.
At Healthy Healing Goddess. Okay, got it. Now, besides ayahuasca, you talked about cacao, which we went over, and then you mentioned temazcal ceremonies. So tell the audience what temazcal ceremonies do.
Temazcal is a purification. It also helps us to learn how to sit and receive medicine, because you go into, it's a traditional sweat lodge, basically, is what it is. And you pass through what they call 4 doors. So as you go into the temazcal, it is going to be dark within the temazcal. They bring the rocks in, pour the water over it, and it steams up the temazcal. So it becomes increasingly hotter, which allows these things that are our fear-based reactions of wanting to get out, to teaches us how to sit with them and stay within when we're in the cooker, so to speak, right? And heating up our bodies. Additionally, it is a wonderful purification as it helps to release the toxins out of the body.
Yeah, I've been to temazcals before, and my very first one, I think I told you the story already. My very first one, oh my God, I thought my lungs were gonna burn and explode. But I realized that, when you stop the idea of the flight or fight response and the anxiety, and you learn to calm your anxiety, your breathing starts to take a different rhythm, and that helps you to be able to handle the heat that's within the sweat lodge. And we did go through 4 doors. We did some sort of a ceremony in the beginning with the shaman, and then there was a cleansing, saging ceremony at the beginning, and then in the sweat lodge itself, they put like these herbs onto the rocks, and that created the heat. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the gates were only like 15 minutes each, something like that.
That's about right. Yeah, it's like 2 to 3 songs normally, so about 15 minutes per door, and each one is in reference to the 4 directions and the sacred elements. And it's basically like being in the womb, because you're rebirthing, right? And coming out, facing your mirror, the temazcal, and then when you come out,
and they would always, like, at the end of each door, each gate, they would kind of sort of lift the flap up just a little bit so we can get some air in there. But I was amazed. I was floored. The people who had been doing the temazcal ceremonies for so long, they were singing.
Yes, we sing. Yes.
I could barely breathe, let alone sing, because it was so hot in there, you know. So, but that's just my experience. I mean, other people may have different experiences, but I had to really uh utilize my meditation experience and my breath work to be able to handle it. So,
and there's also ways to work with that medicine as well. So when you're in the Temazcal, you spoke of your lungs feeling like the fire. I would think that you may have breathed in through your mouth at some point, and that's why you were getting the fire in your lungs. So when you are in Temazcal, it's really important to always breathe in and out through the nose. And if it begins to get too hot for you, you can always go down to the ground, and the ground, because the steam rises, so
right,
close to the ground, it's cooler.
right.
And we always recommend for people to bring like a pareo or a little hand towel with them. So when they're pouring the steam, you can always breathe into that towel, so it's not as intense.
It's intense. See, yeah. I know, no. I stuck it out. I was a trooper. I was sitting crouched on the floor. Didn't put my head between my knees or anything like that, or to get it close to the ground. I was like, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was a great experience, and I totally recommend it. It was a very cleansing experience for me. And I've been back several times. Clearly, if it was a bad experience, I wouldn't have gone back, but I've been back several times since.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
Yeah. So now, do you do like the bufo stuff too, or do you do?
I do not. I have assisted in bufo previously, but I personally do not offer or facilitate the bufo. It's just, you're called to work with certain medicines, and at this time in my journey, that is not one that I'm called to share.
To share, okay. And then now you work out of your house, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what do you do there? Do you have meditations there? Do you?
So for people who are looking for Kambo cleanse, that is a one-on-one, that is not a group session. So those can be booked throughout the week on a one-on-one basis. For the small group ayahuasca and the cacao dances, those are group ceremonies. You can find those on the website or on social media, and all the instructions are there on how to book in for those.
And then one more thing, rape?
Hey, yes.
Yeah,
Rape.
what is that?
So rape or hape, depending on how the pronunciation is, it is a sacred tobacco snuff. So it is a base of sacred tobacco or mapacho. Mapacho is commonly used in the medicine ceremonies. We will be blowing the mapacho on or around you. It is the spirit of the grandfather, and it brings in protection for the space and for the participant. Hape is a little bit different. So this is going to be the ground ash of the tobacco and different types of medicinal plants. So you could have mugwort or cacao or any other, sacred herbs that are blended within it. So there is a variation of rape greatly. There are soft rapes, there are mint rapes, there are medium rapes, there are very strong rapes. So it is applied through the nose via what's called a tepi, which is basically like a small bamboo stick. That I would blow the rape into the nose. And again, it's very important to not breathe in through the nose after that. So this is reverse of Temazcal. You would breathe it in and out softly from your mouth. But rape is used to, basically, it clears the mind. It takes you off of the hamster wheel in your head. So when you receive that medicine, it's like this instant, and it just clears the mind. So it's great to use for meditation, to be able to clear the space, to clear your energy. Is sometimes used prior to entering Temazcal or throughout different ceremonies as well.
Does that include ayahuasca?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you know so much about this. I'm so impressed. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for Vicky. Do you have any more questions for her, or?
I don't. You answered most of my questions, and I'm gonna book a session with Chrystal too, because I'd love to chat with her. And my throat is so, I'm scared of talking that I'm gonna start coughing again. So
no worries. Yeah, no worries. I'm looking at Vicky's eyes right now, and I could tell things are spinning in her, like her gears are spinning in her head. She's very excited about this. So I'm glad that she got something from this as well. So, but Chrystal, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. I appreciate your knowledge and your expertise and everything. And I wish you all the best for this upcoming year. And and if there's anything that you want to add to the podcast in terms of like what you're doing, just let us know, and we'll add it towards at the end of the podcast with like a little contact information type of thing. So we'll put your little schedule up there so that people can know how to reach you and what events are coming up for you. So thank you so much for your time and for spending the hour with us.
Thank you, Kennedy, and thank you for having me. It was an honor to be here today.
Sure. Thank you so much. Take good care, okay?
Likewise. Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was good. Yeah, that was a good one. I like that. She's good.
She's cool.
She's
really
cool.
liked her.
Did
Yeah.
you never met her before?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so she's one person that if I were to do ayahuasca, I'd do it with her. There's a trust level there that I would do. You know, I'm pretty sure everybody else is good. You know, other people are good too as well, but I just, because I've known her and I know that she holds these events, and the people that go to the events, I've always heard good things about them. So
Right.
I would definitely, like, you know, trust her if I were to do something like ayahuasca.